A food security expert just sat before Congress and would not say that drinking soda every day is bad for you. Not because she didn't know the answer, because she knew exactly what admitting it would cost her. And here's the part that should make your blood boil. The corporations that make billions off food stamp spending, they fund her organization. She's not testifying for hungry families. She's testifying for the companies that profit from them. This isn't a debate about Coca-Cola. This is what regulatory capture looks like when it walks into a hearing room and sits under oath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this hearing and for your intense and steadfast work on combating waste, fraud, and abuse. We certainly appreciate it. I know taxpayers appreciate it. And thank you to the witnesses for taking the time to be here. Ms. Platanino, did I pronounce that correctly? Platanino? Okay, Platanino. Got a couple questions for you. Should SNAP dollars be spent on sodas?
The purpose of the SNAP program is to provide families to have food and beverages.
Should it be spent on sugary sodas?
I am happy to talk about hunger and nutrition, but not dictate what Americans should or should not eat or may have access to.
I'm asking if tax dollars should be used to pay for sodas.
Taxpayers' money should be utilized to ensure that individuals have access to the food that they need to survive or may be accessible to them.
Do they need sugary sodas to survive?
Some of them do, who do have low blood issues, who may
Is that right?
who have kidney issues.
You think they need Coca-Cola to survive? Do you think that's the most appropriate use of our tax dollars?
I am not a physician, but medical records and expertise
You were
do show
just
that in some
citing the health
circumstances they
needs,
do.
apparently, of the American people. So do the American people need Coca-Cola to survive?
I did not say that. I said that.
I'm asking you. I'm giving you the opportunity to say yes or no.
I will not answer for individuals and their choices.
You think that there are some Americans who need Coca-Cola to survive? Is that your testimony?
I am happy to talk about the food and nutrition
You just don't
needs
know.
that individuals have.
You just don't know. I think most people can rationally say that you don't need Coca-Cola to survive. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree that we have a hunger crisis and that we need to address it by ensuring that individuals have the food resource that they need.
Got it. And one of those is sugary Coca-Cola. What does SNAP stand for?
It's a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
What's nutritional about Coca-Cola?
I am not a nutritionist. I am a food security expert in ensuring that individuals have the food resources that they need.
This is a common sense question. All of these have been common sense questions. I'm just asking you, is there nutritional value to sugary sodas? It's a yes or no question.
I am not an expert. I would have to look at the dietary guidelines.
You're not an
and look at everything.
expert. I don't think that there's nutritional value to sugary sodas. I think most people in this room would agree with that assessment. But you have no opinion?
I'm here to talk about the food needs and the hunger crisis that individuals here in America are facing.
Are you that ideologically dug in that you want our tax dollars paying for sugary sodas, that you will not, in a straightforward way, admit that sugary sodas are not healthful for the American people?
I think that focusing on soda when people are going hungry.
We spend a
is an
lot of our
issue.
tax dollars are spent on soda. That's why I'm asking about it.
We have
And
no,
you appear to be so ideologically dug in that you won't answer a simple question that's not an appropriate use of our tax dollars and that does not, in fact, make the American people more healthy.
I won't answer because there's no data sort of proving that.
Do you need data to determine whether drinking soda is healthy?
I think
I'm sorry, it's a serious question. Is there some, do you believe that perhaps drinking sodas every day is healthy?
The worst health outcome is hunger. When the individuals don't have the resources.
Do you satiate hunger with Coca-Cola?
I did not say that.
But you said that the worst health outcome is hunger, and I'm asking you about sugary sodas.
And I'm focusing on the nutrition needs and making sure that children have the resources.
Is your organization funded by soft drink makers?
I am not in charge of development, but no.
It's not, okay. Is your organization funded by organizations that make money from food stamps? Do organizations who profit off of food stamps fund your organization or businesses?
I mean, I can't comment to that. Happy to talk about the research that needed.
Does General Mills fund your organization?
I don't have access to that information.
I do. It's right here. They do fund your organization. Do they profit off of food stamps?
Retailers are the major beneficiaries.
Do you think that
of
that's a
the program.
conflict of interest?
That's where EBT dollars are utilized.
Yes, and they're profiting off of your advocacy. Do you think that that's a conflict of interest? I think most people think that's a conflict of interest. I know you don't want to answer. My time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gale.
Let me just validate what you probably felt while watching that. You felt like something was off. Not because the questions were complicated, they weren't, but because the evasion was too smooth, too rehearsed, too comfortable to be simple confusion. And you were right to feel that way. So I went ahead and dug into this, because what happened in that hearing room is actually more cynical than it looks on the surface. Let me take it apart piece by piece so you walk away knowing more than you did before. First, let's talk about what SNAP actually is, because the program's own name is about to become important. SNAP stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, not the Supplemental Calorie Acquisition Program, not the Supplemental Food Access Program. Nutrition. That word is in the title. It is the entire stated purpose of the program. So when a congressman asks a food security expert whether a product with zero nutritional value belongs in a program literally named after nutrition, that is not a gotcha question. That is the most reasonable question imaginable. And she couldn't answer it. Now, I want to be fair here because there is a real policy debate buried underneath this hearing, and it deserves to be acknowledged before we move past it. The argument against restricting SNAP purchases goes like this. Poor Americans already face enough indignity. They already get watched at the checkout line. They already get judged for what they put in their cart. Restricting their purchases further inserts government control into the most personal daily decisions of the country's most vulnerable people. That is a legitimate concern. I mean it. But here's the problem. There is a significant difference between saying, I oppose purchase restrictions because I believe in personal dignity and autonomy, and refusing to confirm that drinking soda every day is bad for your health. One is a policy position, the other is a denial of observable reality. And the witness chose the denial, every single time. She wouldn't say soda is unhealthy. She wouldn't say it lacks nutritional value. She wouldn't say that maybe, just maybe, a program called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program ought to prioritize nutrition. She kept retreating to hunger. She kept retreating to access. She kept retreating to, I'm not a nutritionist. Which, I have to say, is a fascinating defense for a food security expert testifying before Congress about food policy. That's a little like a car mechanic telling you he's not really qualified to discuss engines. But here's where I had to go do some digging, because this evasion felt too strategic to be accidental, and what I found explains everything. Toward the end of the exchange, the congressman asked whether her organization is funded by companies that profit from food stamp spending. She said she didn't have access to that information. He said he did, and he had the documents right there in his hand. So I looked into how food advocacy organizations typically get funded, and the pattern is not subtle once you see it. Large food corporations, retailers, beverage companies, packaged food manufacturers have a direct financial interest in keeping SNAP benefits as unrestricted as possible. Every dollar of SNAP spending that flows through their registers is revenue. Every restriction on what can be purchased is a potential reduction in that revenue. So what do? They fund the organizations that advocate for unrestricted SNAP spending. And those organizations send representatives to Congress to testify against restrictions. And those representatives refuse to say that Coca-Cola lacks nutritional value. That is not a coincidence. That is a system. Now, there's a term for this in political science, and it's worth knowing: regulatory capture. It describes the process by which institutions designed to serve the public interest gradually come to serve the interests of the industries they were meant to oversee or represent. It doesn't require bribery. It doesn't require anyone to do anything obviously illegal. It just requires that the people with the loudest voices in the room are the people with the most money at stake in the outcome. And it works because it hides in plain sight. The witness wasn't lying exactly. She was selecting which truths to speak and which to leave outside the hearing room. She was deploying technical evasion. I'm not a physician. I'm not a nutritionist. I can't speak to individual choices. In service of a conclusion she was never going to deviate from, no matter what she was asked. That is a very specific, very practiced skill. And the fact that she had that skill, deployed it that fluently, under oath before Congress, that tells you something about who trained her and why. But let's zoom out, because the soda question is actually the least interesting part of this story. The really interesting question is, what happens to a public assistance program when the people advocating for it are financially entangled with the corporations that profit from it? Think about what that structure produces. The families using SNAP benefits need the program to work for them, to stretch as far as possible, to provide the most nutritional value for every dollar, to actually address hunger and health at the same time. The corporations funding the advocacy organizations need the program to remain as unrestricted as possible, so that every category of product, including the high-margin, low-nutrition ones, remains eligible for purchase. Those are not the same interest. In fact, in some ways, they are competing interests. And when the advocacy organizations are funded by the corporations, guess which interest gets represented in the hearing room? Here's the part that should make you genuinely angry. This isn't a fringe phenomenon. This is how policy gets made in Washington across virtually every major spending program. The people who testify are overwhelmingly drawn from organizations that have financial relationships with the industries being regulated. The money moved months or years before the hearing. The testimony sounds reasonable in the moment. The outcome just happens to benefit the people who funded the expert who testified. And by the time anyone connects those dots, the policy is already written, the regulation is already finalized, and the corporations are already counting the revenue. The families who were supposed to be served by the program are still going hungry. They just now have better access to Coca-Cola. I want to be precise about one more thing because precision matters here. I am not saying this witness is corrupt in the conventional sense. I am not saying the hunger crisis she kept referencing isn't real. It is. I am not saying food security advocacy is without value. I am saying that when your operating budget depends, even partially, on companies that profit from a specific policy outcome, your testimony on that outcome cannot be treated as independent. It cannot. And the fact that she did not disclose that relationship at the start of her testimony, the fact that she claimed not to know about it when asked directly under oath, that is not a minor procedural oversight. In a different context, that kind of omission would end a career. But this context has a way of absorbing those moments without consequence. Because everyone in that room, on both sides of the aisle, is embedded in some version of this same structure, which is exactly why it's so hard to change. So here is what I want you to take from what you just watched. The next time an expert testifies before Congress and refuses to answer a simple yes or no question, don't assume incompetence. Ask who funds them. Ask what they gain from the answer they're refusing to give. Ask whose interests are protected by the silence. Because the silence is never random. It is always pointed in a specific direction. And it is always pointed away from something someone does not want you to see. Democracy does not fail all at once. It fails one deflection at a time, in one hearing room at a time, in front of cameras that most people never watch. That's why this matters. That's why paying attention to these moments, not the viral ones, not the screaming matches, but the quiet, practiced evasions like this one, is one of the most important things you can do as a citizen. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, subscribe and share it, because the next hearing is already scheduled, and someone is already rehearsing their non-answers.